Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Safety Brief. Today, we're diving into a rising cybersecurity concern. And if you caught last week's episode, you might have picked up on a big hint about today's topic, and that is DeepSeek. While this tool has been praised for its innovation, recent reports have uncovered serious security risks that we just cannot ignore. Joining me today are Mike and Matt, who will help us break down these risks, discuss real world implications, and explore ways to stay secure. Mike, Matt, thank you both for being here as always.
Well, thanks for having us.
Of course. So let's jump right in. To start, let's establish some basics with a two-part question. Number one, what exactly is DeepSeek? And number two, what recent security risks have been uncovered?
Yeah, so I feel like this is the same similar conversation we had when ChatGPT just came out, right? So it was a neat tool. It was made viral via many different social media platforms, and the usage of it, it's I mean it's appeal is its function, right? Being a large language model similar to ChatGPT. There are larger more current event, more investigative matters taking place in the background, whether or not they had taken some of OpenAI's learning models to develop OpenSeek or DeepSeek, rather. See, OpenSeek, that's Freudian slip there. Maybe they did. But that's not the topic of the day as much as what is it? It's effectively another large language model, which I'm sure Matt will unpack further, but similar to what we've seen with ChatGPT and others.
So I find it a little bit funny that OpenAI has started complaining because they said that everything that they have done has been breached. Breached being very loosely used because these are the same people that don't understand what guardrails are. Um, but they provide all of their models for free. Okay, you can go and get all of their models if you really want them, aside from their newest and greatest ones, for free. You can then take those models and you could retrain them with whatever information you want to add in there. They are claiming that DeepSeek violated their intellectual property. But how? If you provide something as open source and free, you aren't violating anything by using the data and retraining it because there's nothing in there that says you can't retrain it. And as much as I would love to say that DeepSeek is the devil, in this case, they aren't because there's countless other companies that have done the exact same thing by retraining or hooking into OpenAI's data models for their own products. So we can't really say that DeepSeek, did anything unethical here. They just found a clever way of playing the game. They jump started their ability to have their models by appropriating other models. It's basically the same thing that music has been doing for the last, I don't know, 80 years. So, when you find that hook that looks really similar in DeepSeek, trust me, you've heard it before. And it was very wonderfully borrowed.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'd like to go a little bit deeper on that second question. How could malicious actors exploit DeepSeek's vulnerabilities? And in your opinion, what are the most serious threats?
Right now, they can't because they're getting bombed to hell and back with a cyber attack. You can barely use their solution right now. They they have they have succumbed to more attacks in a short period of time than I have seen for any company. In fact, I tried to get in the other night and they have fully turned off registrations and are trying to limit it to only certain groups that have access to it right now until they can weather this nonstop cyber attack that they are undergoing. That they won't say what it is, but I'm assuming that it's just a glorified DDoS that's bombing everything on the back end to where it's performing terribly. But that's what happens when you make a name for yourself. People are going to want to make a name for themselves by taking you down. So right now, you can't really exploit too much. However, I have a feeling that since they took the models from OpenAI and retrained them, there might be a way to exploit the lack of guardrails that OpenAI had in there that may not exist in the retrained models.
Yeah, like
So
how we saw at the beginning times of when ChatGPT or OpenAI had first came out, we were able to pretty much get anything that we wanted, how to do a penetration test, how to do more malicious things that we won't go into further detail on. But
we can't
um,
talk about building malicious polymorphic payloads on ChatGPT. Really? Oh, there goes my fun for the next 30 minutes.
I mean, when it first came out, you were able to ask those questions in
Yeah.
a certain manner, and the information, the full entire payload, would be given to you. So it was really turning those script kiddies into real danger. So I'm curious to see if DeepSeek is going to have any kind of protection there or any kind of gates to keep that information.
I mean, I assume that they at some point will have some level of gating and everything else in place. Oh, look, maybe they're going to let me actually try and do stuff. I'm going to keep poking it on the back end, and I'm going to see if I can find out while we're on here. But I have a feeling they're going to have some level of gating in there. But I also have a feeling that based on what we're seeing thus far, unless some radical changes are made, it won't matter because most people aren't going to be able to access it anyways.
Yeah.
There's already numerous entities out there that are flat out blocking access to it because it does provide, or it is a credible threat at this point. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that's already become a threat in a bit.
Yeah, I want to go deeper into the threats. Have there been any recent incidents or case studies that highlight the dangers of using DeepSeek? I know we just saw a Forbes write up on the data leak that Wiz Research reported January 29th. Can you go further into detail on that, or maybe provide any other issues that have come to light?
I'm happy to. And I know, just a quick disclaimer here, because this is Blockworks' weekly live talk show, live stream podcast. Matt's testing that he's doing with DeepSeek is not on a company-owned asset. It is on a personal asset, not connected to our company network. And here's why.
You'd
that's
think people
relevant.
would already know that, though.
We
Oh,
don't
no,
recommend
like-
playing around with it on your company endpoint.
Yeah, this is a don't try this at home type moment, right? And here's the reality. Before we get on this rabbit hole, a lot of people are going to hear this and say, there's a lot of witch hunting going around between TikTok and DeepSeek because of the country of origin being China. Here's the reality. There are international as well as federal, GDPR has their own privacy policy. The United States has their own data handling policy. The level of integrity in which China, and more specifically the Chinese government, they don't exactly play by data handling privacy rules. Okay. And so,
that is true.
again, there are certainly a lot of critiques. This is not political in nature. This is more so in an awareness type angle that we're approaching this. It is just something to be cognizant of. And there will be ties. There will be threads that you see that are very similar to this platform being DeepSeek, TikTok, and then even Red Note, like we talked about last week. So I'll go ahead and share my screen here for a brief kind of deep dive into what exactly are the privacy policies that we should be concerned about. And then shout out to Mashable for this article. We'll find a way to link it for those that are catching this after the fact. But again, we've unpacked this in the way of permissions quite a few times on the safety brief. We've looked at, what kind of information is being collected that you provide, what kind of information is being automatically collected through usage of the platform, and then what information are you consenting to giving up. And this has increasingly stackable repercussions if you're using this on a mobile device, not just your computer at home. Okay. And so first off, it collects the information you provide. This is all bullets taken from DeepSeek's privacy policy. If you want to go through the T's and C's, you are more than welcome to if you'd like. We're not today. So the information you provide, specifically profile information like date of birth, username, email address, telephone number, password. Pretty fair game. If you're creating a Facebook account, if you're creating an Instagram, you got to use those things. Now, again, it is a chat bot. So for those that have never touched OpenAI, never touched ChatGPT or any of the sorts, Effectively, it is a chatbot. You know, if you go onto a website and you submit a query, it's going to answer it to the best of its ability. That is essentially what DeepSeek is. So the text, audio, prompt, feedback, chat history, all uploaded files and other content you provide to DeepSeek, that's what it's collecting. And then information when you contact them, like proof of identity or age or feedback. All of this is pretty par for the course. Okay. If you're going to use the platform, you're not paying for the platform. We have said it time and time again. If you are not paying for it, you are the product. So your data is what is you are exchanging in this barter-like relationship with this chatbot, with this company, that in order to use their platform and service for free, you are giving them these things. That is in their privacy policy, and you accept it every single time you use it. Now, this is where it starts getting a little bit dark. Automatically collected information, internet and other network activity, like your IP address, device identifier. These are things similar to, but not including, and not limited to, rather, MAC address, the specific serial number on your machine, what makes it unique, what your machine is, where it was made, where it is currently, where it's connected, and cookies, which is web browsing information. Technical information like your device model, operating system, keystroke patterns or rhythms. And we'll unpack that further. What does that mean? IP address, system language, diagnostics, automatically assigned device ID, user ID, usage information, payment information, which is self-explanatory, obviously. But we're going to unpack this keystroke patterns or rhythms here, because when we talk about keyloggers in the cybersecurity space and credential harvesting, this is kind of what we're talking about, is any application or platform that is logging keystrokes. Now, for those that are listening to the platform, either on Twitch or any platform, let alone if you're a gamer or not, you're familiar with anti-cheats. Now, anti-cheats are software embedded protections in order to protect the integrity of a game, lest you go off the rails and use some crazy Game Shark hack, right? That gives you some competitive advantage. Anti-cheats are good on gaming computers, okay? Now, why they are dangerous on more machines that are handling and contain privileged access is because they use keyloggers. They are doing exactly this. They're monitoring keystroke patterns or rhythms. Why do they do this? Well, on the anti-cheat side, there's a case to be made. Well, we need to make sure that those playing this game are not manipulating it in a way that gives them a competitive advantage. However, that is a very limited use case scope. We don't need to be monitoring keystroke patterns on everything at all times, such as this. Now, other information, login, sign up, etc. If I actually go to, I'm going to just hit the reader view here. What do keystroke patterns or rhythms mean? Not to dominate this topic, but we'll wrap it up here. DeepSeek's privacy policy states that it collects those patterns, which may seem unusual, but not completely uncommon. For instance, deja vu. TikTok collects the same information while Instagram does not, by comparison. Not making one better or the other, just giving you an example. DeepSeek didn't immediately respond to a request for clarification, I'm assuming from Mashable, who published this article. But there's a, there it is. But there's a bit unknown regarding this keystroke data collection. What's the point? The point is we are sharing this to raise awareness that there is a company geographically based out of a place that doesn't have the greatest history or rapport of properly handling or properly observing data handling policies, gathering all of this data from all of its users. And thus why the joke of the disclaimer earlier, but even more seriously, what Matt was alluding to is why this platform is being almost instant blocked on a lot of different networks because of the risk it poses.
The other thing is keystroke patterns aren't necessarily the same as what the anti-cheats are using. So the anti-cheats are looking for ways that certain things are firing, such as firing in a manner that a human is not able to actually do, such as movement. Or let's just use Call of Duty, for example, because it's the biggest steaming pile of crap that's been released as of late. The anti-cheat is supposed to be catching the modifications that allow you to snap aim or be able to see through walls or any of that stuff by manipulating the data on the back end and giving you a competitive advantage. What this is doing, and the keystroke patterns, it's more of a biometric thing. Every person, and I know everybody knows about fingerprints. Did you know that your keystrokes are also almost as unique to you as your fingerprints? The way that you press certain keys the pressure you push on certain keys can actually tell what letter on the keyboard you're actually pressing on, how long you're pressing on it. Knowing if, you press A, S, D, and F differently, and you press them long on A, medium on S, quick on D, and longer on F, and you see that or that pattern over and over, you can then identify exactly what keys are commonly being typed in. So you can extract that and actually figure out what's being typed without actually logging, which makes it relatively terrifying. The other thing is, and this is something that isn't widely used, but there was actually a threat leveraging keystrokes and the noises that the keystrokes were making, because the switches on keyboards aren't all the same. They're the same type. They are, either red, brown, black, green, fuchsia, whatever the hell you want to call it. It basically has an entire spectrum of colors available, and they all are noisily loud, except for the brown ones for some reason. Brown is like the perfect key, the perfect switch. I love them. But they have actually found a way, and somebody made a POC where you could actually listen to the keystrokes, the clicks, and it was able to log what was being typed by those clicks. So think about that ability to extract, but silently, and you have no idea that it's actually happening. Because who actually reads that license agreement? I mean, obviously a couple people did because they started blocking this out, but the average person that's on TikTok, they're going to read that. They have a hard enough time reading kindergarten books. But, I digress. I'm just saying, it's relatively the same thing. It's a new toy. Everybody wants to play with it. Nobody actually reads the safety concerns about it or what it's capable of actually doing. And if they do read it and they do understand it, a lot of them just throw out the window and say, oh, well, it won't happen to me. Well, unlike other objects with safety concerns like airbags, this is not a it may not happen to me situation. Anything that you are providing to these companies is going into their future training models. Now, why is that concerning? Can we go a little bit down the rabbit hole?
Sure.
All right. Go ask OpenAI, ChatGPT, something simple that is going to be unbiased. That there's plenty of data out there that you can completely correlate. Let's use human rights violations as an example. Go ask it about American human rights violations. You will get a laundry list of things that are actually provided back that are reported as human rights violations against America. Go ask DeepSeek about human rights violations against China. You get the most hyperbolic, rewritten paragraph of rainbow and sunshine being blown up your butt that does not mention any instances of any sort of human rights violations. Which means, obviously, the data is being tainted to hide certain things. So if you're going to be leveraging a solution like that, knowing that they are able to use pattern recognition, who's to say that they're not going to be able to identify somebody asking a question that goes against the hive mind and then use that information on the back end for their own means? I'm not saying that they're going to have some dudes in black suits showing up at their doors, but we do know that over in China, it is very much not okay to speak out against the governing party. And you are incentivized to not do that in not so enjoyable ways. But that's the kind of things that you have to worry about. What is the information that they're able to glean from your keystrokes potentially going to be used for? Can they use that to try and find dissidents? Even if you're not actively typing on something that is of the governing party or that they can theoretically monitor, If you're just typing a note on your computer, but you had DeepSeek that was running at some point and it's now monitoring that, it raises a lot of concerns about the scope and the amount that they can actually utilize. So there's a lot of concerns that are surrounding it. And this has been your dive down the rabbit hole.
No, it's relevant.
Yeah, thank you
I
for
think,
that.
again, from the educational standpoint, there's a lot of precedents being set and a lot of data being gathered, right? I think the realistic nature of why this conversation matters is when you look at Boston Dynamics, when you look at
Mm-hmm.
Tesla self-driving, when you look at rockets that can take off and land, all of this data and these large data models, the larger your data model is, the more accurate and widespread that data set is, the more valuable it is, in the billions of dollars that value is. And a lot of people think of it as, what is somebody going to do with what I do on my phone? Again, it's the average user experience, time spent on average apps, right? And again, it's if we're logging keystrokes like it says in the privacy policy, and as I mentioned earlier, if you have that DeepSeek app on your phone or are using it on your phone, what other things do you type in on your phone? If you log in and check your bank on your phone, do you log in and check other online accounts with your phone? What do you got to type in? Username, password. So trust me, there are models that go through new data sets, right? They have chatbots to go through these data sets to mine and find, hey, all of this was gibberish, but this looked like a username and password. The average time spent between switching between a username field and a password field, just like Matt said. How long is that duration? There was a break there. They're probably changing fields or moving down, or hey, there's an address here. Guess what? That next 16-digit string is a credit card number. Hey, guess what? The next 4 string is the expiration, right? So this is the kind of stuff that's really relevant when a lot of people mindlessly just load this stuff on their phone or go boot it up on their computer. And again, we're just here to warn you against doing such stuff without counting the cost.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Mike. And kind of want to go in a little bit deeper on what Matt was talking about. And it kind of brought up the topic of how China is using social credit scores to reward and punish citizens. And this was reported, I think, all the way back in 2019. But with all of your searches on all of your data and all of the questions that you're asking, what you're searching being logged, that's a huge risk, especially if it's a company coming out of China. Are they putting credit scores on us? Just a thing to think about. So,
right. Especially if that technology is potentially in the future adopted by other countries, right? So if they have figured out a way to mine data, assign scores associated to, you search, whatever, politics or anti certain political leaning content, right? And that's a -1, that's a -1. That technology existing is just as dangerous as a certain type of weapon or certain type of military technology in any form of defense industrial base existing. Again, it's a lot of people have a tough time recognizing the danger of these things because it's not kinetic. You can't touch and feel it, right? So empirically, we can't really understand it, but it's out there, it's real, and there are absolutely bad guys that are waiting for this stuff to be then leaked, and then now it's a field day. They have all the access to that data.
No, I totally agree. So moving on, in your opinion, are there certain industries or environments where DeepSeek poses a greater risk, specifically to compliance on data security? I know we touched a little bit on data security and compliance on the first question, but I was just curious if we can go a little bit deeper on that, especially with them being out, their data centers being based out of China.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be the blanket response here. You should not be using it on any device, company owned, personally owned, for any good reason, especially considering there are alternatives that are not perfect, right? But when you look at Grok, when you look at OpenAI and ChatGPT, when you look at Google Gemini and others, again, no company's perfect, no country's perfect, but you have very different entities that are much more accountable to data handling policies and how they're supposed to secure and handle that data then you do DeepSeek, right? There's 1,000 other alternatives, and Google, and a lot of these are free, to a certain degree. Grok gives you daily, I think a handful of daily free searches. ChatGPT, I believe, does as well. Gemini, I believe, I haven't touched Gemini in a minute, but I believe it does as well. So again, if you are without alternatives, I might start to understand it. But candidly, an explicit knowing the cost use of DeepSeek is, it's a threat to national security. And I think that's the reason why it's blocked so many places right now.
Mm-hmm.
Compliance or no compliance, right? Mom and pop shop with 5 people, 500-person financial wealth management firm in downtown Chicago, New York, etc. There is no good reason to use this platform whatsoever.
Yeah, thank you for that. So for those who have hopped on the bandwagon when it first came out and have already used DeepSeek, how can they mitigate these risks, and what should they do now that they know that these risks are out there, but they've already utilized DeepSeek?
Yeah, with those specific indicators, right? You can't change your device serial number. Most people can't toss their laptop, but I would most definitely, out of abundance of caution, if you've used it while accessing other websites, like you had one tab open and other tabs you were doing anything with a username and password, I would absolutely change a password as far as that's concerned. Again, not many people are going to go and trash their workstation, nor do I think that's justified. But I think, realistically, there are far better alternatives than this platform. And, again, when we recognize the volume of data they're gathering from the good guys angle, there's reasons to be concerned. If you think about what a threat actor could do and why they're targeting, most likely a lot of these attacks are due to some threat actor waiting for their DB to leak. And then they have because what DeepSeek has done is through their privacy policy, they have identified themselves as we are walking around with a pot of gold and highly doubting that they're properly securing it, being so new, right? And so, again, there's not going to be a ton, right? Like retrospectively, you can do if you've used it, you can cease to use it. Not many people can swap their public IP address. Not many people can do things like that. But I would say at the very minimum, if you've used it simultaneously, either on mobile device or desktop, accessing privileged information, either company or personal, both are important. Definitely consider a password change as far as that's concerned, due to specifically the key logging and rhythms, that algorithm that is plainly stated in their privacy policy. It says they're collecting.
Yeah, and thank you again for sharing that. Well, to close us off for today, what can we learn from this to prevent similar risk with future technologies?
Don't use technology.
Don't hop on the bandwagon. Wait for testing
I was going
to
to
be
say,
done.
I think there's wisdom in not being a lemming when it comes to newly emerging technology. Like just don't chase the crowd in adopting these new cool tools, right? Wait until researchers have done their due diligence. Wait until it's made it through. No different than, if you've ever gotten burned by a new product launch or it could be a new phone, it could be a new video game. There's a lot of people that have been burned on day 1 through day 7 of new launches. There's a lot of people, right? It could be a new car, right? A brand new car. And a lot of people, anytime a car it goes through a couple of generations of like maybe a Ford Explorer or a Kia Carnival or whatever it is. Anytime there's a new engine or a new transmission, people are cautious of that year. They want to see how it does a couple months in. Exercise that same caution and patience with technology that comes out. I don't care. We don't care if it's free, right? There's a reason for that. They want their product out there. They need usage and real-time testing data. Be mindful of what you're stepping into. Be mindful of the exchange that's happening whenever anything's free. You are absolutely paying your way into using that platform, but it is a medieval bartering. It is not more today like a commerce-driven exchange, right? You're not paying something, even in a free trial, right? Be mindful of what you're giving up in order to gain access to that, whether it's TikTok, whether it's DeepSeek, whether it's Instagram, Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, any of them, right? Any of them, right? Count the cost and then explore privacy policies with and without paid subscriptions, right? So if you love the platform, if you love the features that you're getting or the value you're getting, consider spending a few bucks and better securing it or having more granular access to the privacy policies and usage. Because I promise you,
That right there is actually part of the reason why DeepSeek took off so fast,
Right.
because their subscription model was $3
Right.
versus OpenAI's being $20 a month.
Right. And they're,
And we all know that
again,
people in tech are cheap. So
and they're smart, right? They know that they're new to the game. They don't have the same brand as Pepsi and Coke right now, metaphorically speaking, being Grok and OpenAI. And so again, how do you drive adoption? You undercut the cost. We've seen this in many different spheres in technology and even managed services, right? But again, just be very, very wary of the hype, of the lemmings kind of marching off the cliff, not knowing what's on the other side, and just do your research. Do your research as you would with anything else in life. Any new health fad, any new medicine, any new technology, any new phone or product or automobile. Do your research. Your data is more important than the value you put on it. Guaranteed, because it is uniquely identifying you. And that is hardly ever felt in a kinetic consequence immediately, but more so down the road, right? I've talked to so many people, months and months go by, and then they have their first ever like identity theft or their first ever credit card fraud, right, on their account, and they're like, I have no clue, I never put a password. Threat actors are patient, right? They can see this data breach, they can wait months and months and months, and then when least is suspecting, they go and strike. So just be mindful, protect your data, put more value in it than you do today. I think is the best takeaway.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Well, that's all the time we have for today. This has been an eye-opening discussion. While DeepSeek offers promising capabilities, the security risks just can't be ignored. A huge thank you to Mike and Matt for sharing their knowledge today, and to our listeners for joining us. If you want to dive deeper into this topic, head over to blockworks.com and check out our recent blog. And remember, cybersecurity isn't just a tool, it's a mindset. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on The Safety Brief.
Thanks all.